All right, now I got it. Hold on, Nafis. I'm gonna give you 1 second. Listen up. I'm sorry, I am a few minutes late to get on here. We had some technical difficulties, right? So that was first things first. The second thing is I figured I'm excited because I figured out how to do a video countdown. Yesterday I had to do a presentation using StreamYard, so I figured out how to use videos. I figured out how to do it all. So today I was like, bet we were running late. I went ahead and I did the video countdown and I forgot to click live. So I was talking to myself for a couple seconds. Well, Nafis was listening and I realized that nobody else was here because I never clicked go live. So I thank God for turning everything around. We did say a prayer before we get started, but I believe that God's going to fix every situation. He's going to pull it together. And I'm glad that I'm no longer talking to myself. So I'm going to bring up in a moment Nafis Ricks. Today's topic is right on time. Right, because we're talking about the mental health of an athlete. And if you've been following sports, we know that we have Naomi Osaka, right? She's a tennis player. I believe she's number 2 in the world right now. But she pulled out of the French Open because she openly shared that she's battling with depression and anxiety and social anxiety, right? Well, social anxiety. And she got a lot of pushback. From people who are watching and saying, oh, what's going on at the French Opens. I think it started out last week where she said, I don't want to talk to the media. And we're going to get into that, like the pressures of being an athlete. But the fact that she had to pull out of the French Open and being transparent when she didn't have to be, but being transparent enough to say, I'm dealing with some issues of depression and anxiety. I'm not really sure how to go forward with this, or I can't go forward right now. And so I'm going to bring Nafis up. He is straight out of Philly. Shout out to Philly. Shout out to home. I'm from South Jersey, but it's 30 minutes away from Philly. Shout out to all the delicious cheesesteaks. I even want him to tell us where his favorite cheesesteak spot is because I'm kind of jealous that he can just go out and get a good one. And he's from the place where you call a cheesesteak a steak or a cheesesteak, and you don't have to call it a Philly cheesesteak because you're right there in Philly. So I'm going to bring him up, and he's going to talk about his sport, basketball, but he's going to talk about the mental health of an athlete. So Nafis, what's up? Welcome to Strong Witness. Yeah, I'm excited for you to share your story with everybody. So I really want you just to flow in your own way about your story from Philly to playing hoops overseas, all that. But what you want people to hear about the importance of athletes looking at their mental health. And then real quick too, tell us your favorite cheesesteak spot just so we know what's up, because I want to hear about it.
Larry's or Jim's. That's my favorite cheesesteak spot.
That's your favorite one? Okay. Now I'm getting hungry. All right, so I'm gonna move out the way and I'm gonna let you share your story. Okay?
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for having me on this beautiful platform. It's been a blessing just to share my story, but my story started back when I was in elementary school. I've been an athlete my whole life, and it's been one of those things something that was always intriguing to me. I played tennis, basketball, football, you name it, all the sports, and just try to be competitive as possible. What I didn't realize as I was growing up as a kid, that what I was suffering from. And what I mean by that is that the first thing was the first sign that I seen that something was going on, that my mother and father was never together. So I never seen them in the household being affectionate towards each other or seeing them together at all. So that kind of triggered me as I was going through my maturation process as far as playing sports. As I got older and I kept continuing to find out that sports was my outlet to, engage myself where I had an opportunity to showcase my ability, but I was really playing out of anger. When you play sports, that's kind of like your safe haven. I treated it like my safe haven. So as I got up to like the 8th grade, I started taking ball very, very serious. I stopped playing football and I wanted to just focus on basketball. But the challenging thing that happened to me that year was my brother was murdered when I was 14 and he was 19. So my life kind of went in a spiral in a sense. I didn't really understand who I was as far as just my well-being, how to articulate my thoughts. I was really depressed about losing my big brother to gun violence. At 14 years old, you don't know how to process that. And when you hear your mother had that cry that her son got murdered at 9 a.m. in the morning in Philadelphia, that's kind of hard to explain to our younger sons. So as I get back, my father moved us down North Carolina because he wanted us to have a better life. So when that tragic incident happened with my brother back in Philly, we moved back to Philadelphia my sophomore year of January. And because we thought it was time for us me and my little brother to move back with my mom because she needed us and comforting her or whatnot. So as I got back to Philly, I took it upon myself that I had to make something of myself. I knew I wasn't a street kid. I knew I was at the time just trying to figure out what I wanted to do and try to find out where I was going to channel that anger. What I found was basketball, once again, was my outlet. So I began to really take it serious, play AAU or whatnot. So my senior year in Philadelphia, I averaged 36 points a game and led the state in scoring. What I didn't know is that I didn't take the SAT until my last month before I graduated. Me not knowing, me being ignorant to the fact, and nobody at my school was telling me the process of gaining a scholarship. I knew my parents couldn't afford for me to go to college, and I think they did a hell of a job raising me. My father, my grandfather, and my mom. I got the best of both worlds. That's what I always say. So I didn't get a Division I scholarship. That was my goal. So I was very, very frustrated and angry about that because that was my whole goal: get to Division I, hopefully get a chance to play in the NBA. That didn't happen. My life kind of spiraled again, where I had to enroll into a prep school called Maine Central Institute in Maine, one of the top prep schools in the country at the time, and it wasn't a good situation for me. I didn't know how to work out. I had an ego. My ego was big, and you got 12 alpha dogs up there trying to get to a scholarship, and not really understanding that there's only one basketball. Somebody got to come off the bench. So I didn't get an opportunity to showcase my ability. So I left by January. And when I came home, I started working at UPS. My mom sat me down and said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to play basketball." But in the meantime, I had to work. So I worked at UPS for a month. And then if anybody know about UPS working at 11 to 3, that's like the graveyard shift. Kicking boxes, moving boxes. I was just like burnt out mentally, physically. So I quit. And I just played in all the rec games and rec summer leagues and stuff like that before I got an opportunity to go to a junior college called Johnson County Community College in Kansas, where my career kind of took off. It was different for me from going place to place and not realizing that I had an opportunity right in front of me, but I had to seize the moment. It was either I was going to go back to working or I was going to play basketball. So as I continued down that positive path, I won Freshman of the Year my freshman year at Johnson County Community College. I was an All-American for junior college, and I won a bunch of accolades. What I did find out was I was a horrible leader. And the reason why I say I was a horrible leader, because I didn't know how to talk to people. My mentality was the Philly mentality, like get out the way. I was cursing. I was just trying to, whatever I could do to get a scholarship at the Division I level. And on top of that, I was still feeling the effects of having my friends gunned down in the street. From the time I moved back to Philly, I was losing multiple people in the street to gun violence. So I really didn't know how to articulate myself, and I really didn't know how to, channel that anger into a positive manner. So my coach, Coach Jeffers, and my teammate Kyle Speed brought me into the office at the end of the year. It's like, yo, some things you got to work on. You're a great person, but you got to work on your attitude on the basketball court, because you're not going to get the best out of you. Your teammates they're not going to like that. So I had to adjust, and I had to really think it to myself on what I was willing to sacrifice and willing to change. I came back my sophomore year, had an amazing year. We won the national championship. I won National Junior College Player of the Year. And at the brink of my success, my cousin was gunned down in North Carolina. He's one of my closest cousins. I got 50 phone calls like, your cousin's laying on the ground dead, shot in the head, and his body was sitting over 5 hours. So you can only imagine what my mental was going through, one of my first cousins. So as I try to channel that, I felt like I was going in circles. I lost my brother, I lost my friends, and then I was losing to one of my close cousins. So I struggled. I really struggled that year, but we won. So I was happy about that, but I still felt like I was missing something. As I transferred to Missouri State, the one thing I noticed when I was doing my recruiting process is that I was intentional about playing for a Black coach. And the reason why I say playing for a Black coach was monumental to me, because I needed somebody who can relate to me. All this violence that was going on back at home I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I needed to save everybody, and I know I couldn't. And I felt like I had that imposter syndrome where I didn't feel like I belonged where I was at. So when I got to Missouri State, uh, Coach Conzo Martin was a coach that I can really relate to. From East St. Louis, Missouri. If you know anything about that, it's very very similar to Philadelphia as far as just how they operate in a sense. So once I got there, it was tough because it was a guy who he didn't judge me. He really would treat me like a human being. It wasn't no cursing or anything. He might have said one curse word in 2 years my whole time and he apologized, but it wasn't no belligerent. So you can only imagine. I'm coming from the inner city where we play hard. Like our mentality is hard nosed, and you borderline fighting when you playing outside on the playground. So when I got a guy like Conzo Martin feeding into me and pouring into me, as far as not cursing at me to get the best out of me, I knew he was doing something right, and I didn't take it personal when he pushed me. Uh, what he did was he showed me tough love, but he showed me that he cared. And for 18 games or 20 games, I came off the bench. So you can only imagine leading scorer in the state of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, and then being the National Junior College Player of the Year and with a national championship. And I'm coming off the bench. I was very frustrated. I had moments where every night I used to cry, and I couldn't do individual workouts. My workouts really was basically like anxiety. My hands were sweating before workouts. I used to ask my teammates, what is a workout going to be? I almost like throwing up before workouts and stuff because I was so scared and, frightened by being embarrassed and not finishing. It was to the point where at every practice, they used to make me get on the treadmill to get in shape or whatever. And I didn't know what it was. So I can remember that one day after practice, I sat down with my assistant coach, Coach Harris, and I told him I was going to quit basketball. I think I was overwhelmed. I couldn't control my feelings on how I was feeling, and I kind of felt like hopeless. So I went to Coach Conzo Martin's office and said, "Listen, I know something wrong with me. I want to get help. I need some help." So what I got from it was a guy who didn't judge me and a guy who looked like me at a high position that he cared. Like it wasn't even about the basketball part. It was more about my well-being. So he recommended me a psychologist, the best thing that happened to me because I really got to unpack what I was feeling and all those struggles that I was going through in my life, from losing friends to the street, my brother, my cousin, and so forth. So as I get this psychologist, I didn't feel uncomfortable at first because I trusted my coach, and I really trusted him to the point where if he recommended this person, I know they was going to do right by me. So I gave it a shot. A best thing that ever happened to me. I got to unpack all the wounds that I was feeling in the inside and really got a neutral perspective. White woman, I can't remember her name, but I really got the voice on how I was feeling. And I couldn't talk to my mom. I couldn't talk to my brother. I couldn't talk to my friends because they would say I'm soft or it's because of girl or whatever. I just didn't, right at that time, I didn't really want to hear what they had to say. I wanted somebody to listen to me, to be honest. So as I move forward, I can remember when we won my senior year. Now, mind you, I got therapy. I'm going to therapy with a psychologist and seeing her, and it made me feel good about myself. I came back with a whole new mindset my senior year. As I get to my senior year, it was like a breeze. Like I felt like I was a new person, reincarnated. I changed my habits, some of the things that I was doing that wasn't healthy for me. And then we won the first conference championship ever. So mind you, in school history. So everybody rushed the court. So I was having a panic attack, an anxiety attack on the court. And I didn't even realize it. I was sweating, I was overheating, and I was overjoyed. So we went to the restaurant that night. My shirt was completely sweat because I was signing autographs and on the paper plates and stuff. And I never did that before. And I went in the bathroom and my whole entire shirt was drenched. And I had to take my shirt off and put my hoodie back on. But I was like panicking, like losing my breath and everything. And I came back to the table, was like, I got to leave. I felt overwhelmed and just felt like out of place. As I continue to go through therapy, I realized that I start finding out what triggered me, that I couldn't be around large crowds. I couldn't have too much going on around me, or I would trigger, like my anxiety would trigger right away. As I move forward with my career, I got an opportunity to play overseas internationally. for a couple years, Belgium, Brazil, and things like that. And it was one of the best moments of my life. But the one thing I realized as an athlete, I was struggling because that I was so far from home. I just had a newborn in 2012, where I'm like, man, this basketball ain't gonna last forever. So mentally, I was kind of beat up. I had 6 agents in 3 years, and that's not normal for a player to have 6 agents in 3 years to have a successful career, from my knowledge. So mentally, I was beat up. I didn't know what was going to go through next. I don't know what I was going to do when I came home. So I called it quits and got me a regular job. Although it was different, the transition from being an athlete, your mentality is always an athlete, once an athlete. And once I got an opportunity to come home, I got into coaching at Imhotep Charter in Philadelphia here, one of the top programs in the country. And it was kind of a relief. I was still playing with the guys, just mentoring them and just learning the game of coaching. As I got comfortable with that, I got an opportunity to University of Missouri, where I was a graduate assistant for 2 years, and I got my master's degree. But that kind of really shaped who I was as a person, because I got an opportunity to work with guys and got with my coach, who was the head coach, who coached me in college, Conzo Martin, and he's the head coach, now the head coach at University of Missouri. So he basically told me, pour into these guys and give them all you got. So from that point on, I didn't realize what my impact would be or my role would be. So somebody sent me a mental performance job, and they asked me, like, can you help me get this job? So when I read everything about the job, I'm like, I'm doing this now. I'm not really sending this back. And when I seen that kind of enlightened me, or opened my eyes up, that I wanted to be a psychologist. I know what therapy was about. I've been through similar situations to help people transition, but help myself transition. And what better way to have somebody who can relate to you on and off the floor? And so that's what I started being to the guys. I'm being a liaison between the coaches and the players, and working with the psychologists. If anybody needed help, or that I seen signs that guys were struggling on the team, I kind of said, this made me want to pursue this opportunity and really go back to school to become a psychologist, because I think there's not enough Black men in these spaces that can cater to that demographic, as well as know the language and, articulate yourself where people feel comfortable. So that's overall how I got to this point, and where my story is kind of evolving from day to day, where now I just feel like my next step is to become a psychologist. I'm applying to schools to, become that, and working with teams and coaches and administrations, as well as community. So that's a little bit about me and my background of my story. So if we have any questions or anything, please shoot.
I have questions.
Perfect.
But you gotta, man, like, Nafees, I heard you tell, what part of Philly are you from?
West Philly.
Okay. I heard you tell, it's funny. I know every time you hear West Philly, you start the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song in your head. I know I wasn't the only one who just started singing that in the head, but what high school did you go to? You said
Lamberton High School.
Okay. But even as you're telling your story, you're talking, and I heard you share some of it before when you and I did a presentation together. But see, I didn't hear you say some of the things you said tonight. And as you're sharing, it's like I'm getting like these chills, because I can't imagine some of the things that you went through. Mm-hmm. Right. When it comes to, I'm talking about the murders of the ones you love. I'm talking about your brother. Mm-hmm. Your close friends, watching your friends around you, losing them to gun violence in the street, your mm-hmm. cousin, for the most part, I wasn't, like I said, I didn't grow up that far from West Philly, but it was a totally different life, mm-hmm. and not having to worry about those things. Right. And I want to get to that, because that's trauma in itself, mm-hmm. along with the anxiety you mentioned after winning the championship. Right. Mm-hmm. But let's walk it back. You said that when you were in high school, you were the number 1 player in the state.
Number 1 scorer of the state. I want to make sure.
Number 1 scorer. Okay. All right. Same thing. Number 1 player, scorer. So what? All right. So you're the number 1 scorer in the state. I'm trying to figure out how you weren't recruited and nobody told you to take the SATs. I don't know. And let's look at it, because this is what I'm talking about when I talk about mental health of an athlete. a lot of times, whether it be AAU, whether it be high school, college, we're looking at the athlete for the performance value and not the overall well-being of this person. And don't let me get, well, whatever, I guess I can do it because why not? Specifically for the Black athlete or the Black male athlete, it's kind of like, what can we get, as opposed to are we looking at a human being and looking at this person's future? Okay. I'm just baffled by the fact that, because if you're the number one scorer in the state, colleges were calling. You were not unnoticed. So how did the SAT thing not?
Well, it was tough. I mean, I didn't really get any call. I got all junior. Well, it was a lot of junior college. It was no Division I. It was really, for me, I still to this day I got resentment against the Philly schools and all the coaches who didn't recruit me or give me a phone call and let me know that they was recruiting me at all, because I felt like that was my way of getting out. And, you know, being in the inner city, you don't get an opportunity. You don't have a lot of exposure to other things. And, you know, I forgot to leave. I left a major part of my story that I didn't say from earlier, but I was diagnosed with 3 mental illness: PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And I had a learning disability that I found out when I got diagnosed I was dyslexic. So I could have got an IEP and everything, and not saying that the IEP would have helped me, but I would have got my work tailored to myself, which would have affected my SAT score and my grade point average. So I was devastated because I was figuring out why and how I didn't notice. And I thought my ego played a big role in why I was slacking off in high school when I moved back to Philadelphia. So it was one of those things. Nobody told me. I didn't know the process of getting recruited. I thought I'm gonna score all these points and I'm gonna be handling a scholarship and go to college, and we off to the races from there. So that's kind of how everything kind of spiraled downhill for me.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, let's keep it real. Sometimes it does work that way. You scored points and then they come. That's why I'm like, nah, somebody was sending something. Somebody made some phone calls, but I guess we can't go back and fix that. But it's just hard. But I mean, how do you think that affects young people right now, that people aren't looking at, they're just looking at the sports side of it and not academically, or not this person's future or the best college for them, as opposed to just going somewhere?
I think when you do that, you fail the neighborhood and the community, because the thing is, if that's the leader of the community and people stop what they're doing to go watch this player and he doesn't get an opportunity to fulfill his needs on and off the floor, then he goes back to the street. A lot of guys that I know, that's the comfort zone. That's where the love is at. So they feel. So therefore, when you put him back in that sick environment where he can't thrive, I think that causes commotion and problems to the neighborhood and the community, because he's the golden ticket to get everybody out. Everybody's assuming, putting all the pressure for him to get an opportunity to be on TV and hopefully get a chance to the NBA. So when you don't have the guidance on and off the floor and academically, first and foremost, and I'm not just talking about 1 + 2 = 3. I'm talking about real education where they can absorb it and then give it back to somebody when they asking them questions about their role and their position and where they're trying to go using basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point you made. I think I heard you say that before. Like, when you don't, they didn't just fail you, but the community, right? Because had young boys and young girls, because you were well known in the city at that point, had they known that you worked hard and you went off to college, they would have wanted the same thing, right? The same way that our young people can hear these songs and they want that lifestyle. But to say, wow, is that Nafees? He's down here at Temple, he's down here at Drexel, right? Or he's at Villanova, like whatever is around there, right? They would want to go play in those teams too. The same way everybody wanted to be Allen Iverson and start wearing, the cornrows and the sleeve. Wasn't nothing wrong with their arm. They had the sleeve on, you know what I mean? And the Reeboks, like all that stuff, they would have done that. And so I love the point that you made. They didn't just fail you. You failed West Philly or the kids in Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the meantime, and this is not just you, but a lot of times we see this with, especially being a counselor and then working with young kids, especially males. You had so much you bottled up that you didn't talk about. And you said, I couldn't tell my brother, I couldn't tell my mom, I couldn't tell other people because they would call me soft. Right. And how did you deal with those things of losing? Were you numb to it, losing friends, losing your brother after so many murders? Like, did you talk about it with anybody, or it was kind of like, let's just keep it moving?
The one thing I noticed about, especially now, I think I have grown numb to to violence, like as far as gun violence, because it happens so often here in Philadelphia. But at the time, I cried. I mean, I really was heartbroken about my position and like, could I stop it? I felt like I was the problem of not stopping that stuff. And maybe if I would have went to school and brought everybody with me, it wouldn't have happened. So I used to blame myself for a lot of it. And like I said, I used to go into these deep depressions and just ask myself why and what could I do to change the dynamic of my community as well as my family structure. So, uh, yeah, that's kind of what I did. I really just tried to, numb the pain in a sense and use sports as my anger, my way to get out my anger and, try to block everything out until it came to a head.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it served its purpose, right? It worked. It's just that there were so many other parts of you that just weren't addressed.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's why when I started off, when we were talking about tennis player Naomi Osaka, even pulling out of the French Open and saying, "Listen, my mental health is important right now. I can't do it."
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But it was hard for her at that level, being what she ranked the second best tennis player in the world.
Hmm.
But it's just as hard when we get people to see, for athletes or anybody in the limelight, for a young boy from West Philly who's going through something.
Hmm. And you don't expect, I mean, those conversations you don't really talk about your mental health or those, you don't talk like that's just not a conversation. Well, what's wrong with you? Because everybody will label you crazy. But the one thing about athletes and men, and especially in general, ego always plays a part. And I think locker room talk is a form of therapy because you get the real raw and uncut on how people are feeling. So we do talk about our struggles. It's just the way how we frame it. And sometimes it's toxic, sometimes it's negative, and sometimes it comes out real raw and authentic. So I think we do talk about it. I just think when you attach the therapy word to it, or it got so much stigma around it. So I think we got to change up the jargon a little bit for people to open up. Because like I said, I wasn't talking to anybody about it because I was too scared somebody would judge me, or somebody would just talk about me and stuff, and I wasn't ready to handle that.
Okay. Yeah. At that time, what was your biggest fear if you did talk about it? Just they would judge you and do what? Because at this
Uh,
point, you could still hoop. You were still the the highest
uh,
scorer.
yeah. I just think I was insecure. Like I'm gonna be frank, I was insecure about my position and was I good enough? I think when you play in sports, it's a ego driven. So you tell them, oh, well, you're not good enough, or you didn't get Division 1. Like, what else could I say? Like, I feel like I'm a failure. So it was kind of that would add extra pressure onto it. Well, now you soft and you didn't go to Division 1. I wasn't really to take that blow at the time.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Okay. I think I like something that you said too. You said there's not enough Black men in those spaces, and I believe that when it comes to being a sport, focusing on mental health in sports, a sports psychologist, um, not just coaches, but being in that locker room and hearing that. Because even if you heard that locker room talk,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if you hear it now, you know what follow-up questions to ask, or you know who to pull to the side and have conversations. What are some of the issues now that you see young people dealing with, athletes, like some of the problems that they're carrying that you hear in the locker room, in those spaces?
Identity. I think identity is probably one of the, especially in a basketball locker room, because you're getting tugged and pulled, and some people coming in with 100,000 followers, so they have a name outside of who they really are, and you try to mesh both of those together, and you can't never turn it off. Like, you always somebody to the public, and I think that creates division in a sense, but it creates bonding as well. So it's like a give and take. Social media is good and it's bad at the same time, because you got to live up to the expectations of what people think of you. You might be struggling with something, but it's no bad days on social media for you. It's like nobody shows the negative or shows your bad day unless you feel vulnerable enough and you feel cool enough to share that. So I see identity in trying to transition from athlete to person, to just trying to separate the two. It's like when I play basketball, I'm on the back, I'm this way, but when I'm off the floor, I can let my hair down. I like to paint. I like to draw. I like to do different things. And, that's not the normal thing with athletes or basketball guys and men see themselves in or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because some of it, what you said, I mean, clearly I'm dating myself. We didn't have social media when I was in high school. So there was no such thing as a bunch. If somebody was following you, they were literally following you, like
Right.
behind you, and you should probably run or do something, right? But we didn't have these followers where you weren't celebrity. If anything, you had to wait till the newspaper came out, the Enquirer or the Burlington County Times, and then you had to open it up and read it. But you get it like, you know, real time when you have this following. Okay, so that's what you see now, especially in AAU or these big time high school programs, is the idea that these kids are mini celebrities in their neighborhood or in their city. And so it's hard to be vulnerable and talk about what's going on.
Right. I agree. All the kids that I mentor, I always tell them, post your flaws so they can see you as human. So if you had a bad game, don't just post the highlights of your good moments, post the bad moments. So now when you get the I guess the clap back from the comments, they can see you as human. Well, he did accept it, like he didn't have a good game. So I'm always transparent. And I said, I think people love transparency in this time right now. You might not like it the first blow, but when people see you as normal, then they start treating you like, oh, I can respect that person.
Yeah, I think so. I like vulnerability. Shout out to Strong Witness storytelling platform. Yeah.
Vulnerability is a strength. Black Men Hill.
It is. The Black Men Hill, right. So, and speaking of that, what you said, because just to recap really quickly what you said, you went from Philly to Maine, which in itself is a culture shock, I imagine, right? And then you went from Maine to a junior college in Kansas. This is all not West Philly. But it wasn't until you found another Black male in a really where you came from, in an inner city, you know, East St. Louis, Philly, where that person was able to see you. Right. So just talk about that again, like specifically the importance of you know, Black male to young Black male or in sports in general, but having somebody who gets you. I think you're helping somebody there.
Yeah, I think with that, I was very, very intentional about picking my coach. Like, so what I did was after we won, I probably had 50 scholarship offers. Like, I was excited. I was like, oh, I finally get my just due. But I said before I got recruited, I said, I don't need you to coach me on the basketball court. I need somebody who can coach me in my life, because this basketball stuff is going in. So I took 4 visits to 4 Black coaches, head coaches. And if you know about the NCAA, there's not a lot of Black head coaches in that span. So Derek Jeter from UW Milwaukee, Rod Barnes, who was at Georgia State, Johnny Dawkins, who was at North Texas, and Conzo Martin was at Missouri State, where I went. The thing that separated me from the other guys was this guy was young enough where I can reach him and talk to him like, oh, this is a conversation where I don't feel like you're my coach. I feel like he's an extension of my father. So when I picked him, I was like, yo, this is normal. Like, I feel good about myself, like no judgment. And I think as young Black males, you need to see somebody that's in those high positions, but not sugarcoating it for you and not giving you the fluff to tell you what you want to hear, but telling you what you need to hear so you can navigate. Because I went to a predominantly white institution. That was a shock to me. I went to a predominantly white institution for 4 years. So I might have been the only Black kid in some of my classes. So learning how to operate and, you know, toning myself down at times, I kind of was suffering in silence. So I didn't, at least at the very end, at the basketball part, when it was my time, my space that I felt, my sanctuary, I think having that Black coach helped me out a lot, because when I was feeling some type of way, I can really have a conversation. It's like, how do you navigate in these pockets where you feel uncomfortable and you know the opportunity may lie down the road where you might be in this again, and you got to kind of fend for yourself when I'm not around or whatever. I need to be that mirror image for the next group that's coming behind me. So that was kind of what I was going into thinking about picking him specifically. And like I said, we talk every day, and, you know, my relationship is beyond a coach on the basketball court. It's about life. So that's what I try to stress with people.
Yeah. And Nafis, it sounds like you grew up somewhere in there, somewhere between being the top scorer and just not knowing in high school and not knowing about the SAT, or nobody coming to tell you, not getting any phone. I'm still mad about that. I know it's you. I know you're probably over it, but I'm mad about it. Like, you had some letters. Somebody was calling that coach's office. Like, this is it's impossible.
I was praying. I actually was on a call yesterday with the coaches from Philly and stuff. And I was like, I got a grudge against y'all. Like, I didn't hear from any of y'all, but, you know, it was time and everything, and it worked out for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. But somewhere along the line, you grew up from, So where do you feel like, okay, this transformation really happened for me? Was it when you went back to UPS? Was it in Maine? Was it in Kansas? Or where was that change begin to happen for you?
I grew up after he sat me for 20 games and he humbled me, come off the bench, and I got the psychologist. So it was more like it was like not a game, but it was transparency. Okay, you didn't work hard. Okay, you're gonna come off the bench, but I'm gonna get you help too. So it's like, what can I say? I couldn't be mad because I needed the psychologist to unpack, but I needed to sit too because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do because I didn't know how to articulate myself. So I think my junior year going into my senior is where the stride I took big leaps and stuff and where I matured and like this is my last year. I'm either gonna get with the program or I'm gonna get the help that I need or I'm gonna go back home and I'm just gonna be another one of them hood legends, and I didn't want to be that.
Yeah, because there are a lot of hood legends, right? There's a lot of people in them playgrounds that really could have went D1 or professional, right? But they didn't have the structure. They didn't have what you're ready to get back to the kids now,
right?
Because I believe now in Philly, the nation, you are making some changes. A lot of kids need you. You needed you. You know how people say, give the kids what you needed when you were younger. This is what you needed, what you're turning around and giving to people, right? And what Prophetess is saying, many expected you to perform at extremely high and competitive level and not express what was tearing you up internally, right? Again, they go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're exactly right. I was just saying exactly.
Yeah, what she's saying too, right? They expect you to operate as this money-making machine or basically give them a name in Philly and not worry about the man that you were growing up to be. Yeah. And what and Prophetess Atkins can speak to this. Well, you guys can speak to it. Let me just give this disclaimer. I played basketball too when I was in college. I too played ball, but I was not very good. And I went to I wasn't. Let's not down immediately. Just don't. I wasn't very good. And I went to a D2 school in like the mountains of Pennsylvania. But one thing I did notice is that when you get to college, nobody tells you that everybody is good. And like you take the top kids from all the teams and you come together. You think that you're going to still be just that person that you are on this team, one. And two, what nobody told me was that this is a business. Even at a D2 state school, this was no joke. You're going to wake up at 6 a.m. You're going to be here. You're going to eat at this time. You'll practice from this time and don't miss this bus ride. And this is work. And from the time you step on campus, well, summertime, and then the time you step back in the fall and every day back around, matter of fact, until you leave up out of there, you in this business. And I don't think people, know how to tell other people that that's what we're doing. This is some other stuff.
Yeah, man, you said it all for me. I'm very, very transparent about how I feel about athletes. And I feel like, especially in college, you have to really put the pressure on these coaches, administration, and say, what can you offer my son or daughter? And really ask them the authentic question. I'm not even saying hard questions no more, because what I need from what I see from these staffs and administration, everybody always talk about, let's go Power 5 and go to these big time schools and get all these resources. When do you have time to get all these resources? Once again, if you're pulling a kid from a community where he's not exposed to any of this, this is a shocking. I feel uncomfortable going to the AD to go talk to, or your advisor, or I'm trying to build you into a man. Well, this is a strict set of rules, and I never had rules back at home. And then you integrate me and put me in this environment where, well, you get your school paid for you. It's a tax write-off. I keep it. People don't know scholarships are a tax write-off. So when people say they are free, they are not free. They are a tax write-off that somebody earned, and they have to give them out. And when that enrollment goes up, I guess that's the trade-off. So this $300,000 scholarship that we getting from classes that some of us don't even get to pick. They just fill the times up what makes sense for the practices in the game. So sometimes guys are taking classes that can't translate into the real world, and it's unfortunate because I'm like, they stress 3.5. Well, the team. Well, did the kid get a job after he was done, or he was back at home and doing the same thing when he left here? So we rented him. We rented the kid, and then we put him. He graduated, or he didn't graduate, and then he went back to the environment where we're sick. I don't agree with that. So I always say, leave those GPAs out. They fine and all that, but if you ain't making a phone call, you're not going the extra mile to help your kids that played for you. That's not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. You think a lot of kids, how many kids have you seen that have gone off and couldn't make it at the college they were at because they weren't nurtured while there, weren't taught while there? Like you said, I picked you up from West Philly and dropped you someplace and expected you to perform, which in itself is a culture shock. How many kids have you seen back in the neighborhood, not even finishing out the first semester or year?
Tons. I can just walk in the neighborhood now. Like, it's people that some of them went all the way to their senior year and just left. And it's trying to get back in school to this day. I'm like, and trying to get their degree. And it's just like, it's unfair because there's no preventative stuff that's around colleges to help these guys or women to matriculate into the system, because they put you, like you said, as soon as you get on campus for the summer, you get your gear, class, workouts, you so sore and you mentally burnt out. You're like, what did I sign up? This is no longer basketball anymore. This is a business. And when you get that shock, your body gets that shock of a workout, you're like, yo, they really own what I do. Like, I don't own what I do. I don't own what I do. So it's just like, why don't we have preventative or things in place when you got it? I'm going to just be blunt. A kid smokes weed. You're not going to just wing a kid off. You're not going to just tell a kid stop smoking weed. That just doesn't happen. What preventative? If you know this kid smoking weed, what are you doing on your campus or providing them with some stuff to get off of smoking weed, or getting them counseling or therapy or whatever to see why he's smoking weed? Because it might be a trigger. He might be triggered from this, might how he calm down. So I just think we got to think forward and whatever, and stop looking at topics as taboo and stuff like that, and really address the issues where these kids come into an environment where it's brand new and it's hard. It might be hard to adjust.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few thoughts in my head. I'm trying to get them right. But not only the flip side of that, I'm waiting for we have somebody on here who played D1 women's basketball.
Okay.
And won a national championship. So I'm waiting for her to start talking to Nafis, because she gonna tell it. She gonna tell it. And I'll pull you up too, Prophetess. You want to be on here? I'll send you the link. Say less. You can be up here in a couple moments, and you and Nafis can just be running the show. But the flip side of that, Nafis, not only going off somewhere, I don't care if it was D2, even D3. I know they're not handing out scholarships there, but you know what I mean, and playing and then not being able to take it and then coming home. What about the kids that think that I'm gonna go out here and hoop, and I'm just gonna make Duke gonna come calling me, and UNC gonna call me, Kentucky gonna call me, right? Stanford, and it's not that easy. Like, there's very little slots for those people, right? Everybody ain't making it to the NBA.
1%.
Right. So, so what are you telling those young people who think that I'm gonna go out here, just because I'm scoring 20, or like you, the number one scorer in the city? You weren't playing down for Coach K, in Durham. So what would you say?
My advice my advice now with that, I said, you can go to Duke, you can go to North Carolina, you can go to Kentucky. You might not be playing, but you can be a coach. You can be a graduate assistant. You can be a athletic director. So I just changed the verbiage. I said, I don't discourage. If you feel like you work hard enough to get to those programs and elite programs like that, and it doesn't happen, I just say, well, you can be in those programs. You just might not be playing. And just like about the NBA, there's so many jobs and opportunities out here. We just need the exposure to be exposed to it. Let's be an owner. Let's be a GM. Okay, you're in the NBA. You're in the NBA. You're just not playing. So it's just like director of operations. I think it's exposure. So I let kids talk because I want them to think big. I don't want to never drop, that's not realistic. It is realistic because the owner doesn't have to play. He can walk in his facility or the stadium. He's writing the checks. So if you want to write the checks and if you want to play ball I always just I never discourage and I keep it real. I always keep it real. I'm like, so are you working like that? And I'll actually walk them through, what does it look like to be that type of player? Because this is the type of player that's bringing in. Have you did this A, B, C, and D? And if they can't answer that for themselves, I don't have to say anything. You do your own checklist.
Yeah, that's good. And before I'm going to hit the pause button, Prophetess Atkins, if you can hit that link, that'll pull you into the studio, and then I'll put you in the broadcast too. So I posted that link for you. What I heard you just say, basically, if you want to be that type of athlete, what are the steps to take to get there? Okay, just because you drop in so many, you have the best stats doesn't mean you're gonna make it. Because you still gotta take the SAT, you still gotta do all this stuff to get to that level, and then you gotta sustain and be on that level and stay there.
Right.
right? Because not everybody makes it. But, you know, a perfect example of you may not be the star athlete, but man, you can make this money is LeBron and his whole camp. Like the way he came up and then pulled the rest of them and made his circle, made his tribe millionaire, if not soon billionaires. That's a big deal. That's the ultimate flex, not just me, you know, signing a contract and playing, you know, 8 teams in 10 years or playing on one team. The ultimate flex is Can you hear me? What was that? I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was me, if it was you, or it had to be me. Sorry about that. I don't know what just happened. But I don't know what went on. But it came back. Sorry. That was something. All right. Yeah, but tell us what you're doing now in Philly for the young people.
Oh, so I currently work at a school where I'm a mentor and everything like that, but I'm really just shaping myself up to get ready to apply to a graduate program for a PhD to become a psychologist, and you know, working on some stuff to get my CMPC as a certified mental performance coach, so I can start really doing. Well, I do a lot of work now and just coaching. I do a lot of coaching. I don't do no therapy. I always tell people, I'm not diagnosing you. I don't have this. I don't have that skill set. I'm not going to prison for the misdiagnosis of anybody. And I always I do a bunch of seminars, workshops, and just things that I can bring to the community, and not just sports. I just try to be an outlet for people to, you know, sometimes people just need somebody to listen, and I just continue to put that kind of energy out there like that.
I heard you, Nafees. I was waving at Prophetess Atkins, but it looked like, I don't know if she can see me. That's why it looks like I'm waving at. Hold on, I'm gonna bring her up, and I'm gonna let her share her story too. But Nafees, you don't go anywhere. Hey, Prophetess. Hi. There you go. I was waving at you. I don't know if Megan saw me waving and didn't know who I was waving at.
Thank God, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, Lord
Jesus. No, this is good. This is Nafees, and Prophetess, tell us some of your story from D1. Even when I know you heard Nafees the whole time he was talking, but from being recruited to playing D1 to, you know, what happens to the athlete when you get there, the mental health of an athlete. So I'm just gonna allow you your space to share. We're gonna move out the way, Nafees, for a second.
Okay. Great story, Nafees. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that a whole lot. Thank you. It's awesome to hear another athlete speak of the things that when I was an athlete 30 years ago, these things weren't spoke of and unheard of. So I applaud you so very much. I grew up in small town USA, in a really, really small country town. Shooting the ball, able to play defense, shoot the three, you name it, I could do it. My school was a Class A school where we played 6-man football, 6 people on the field. My recruiting experiences, for me, I was discovered by happenstance. I don't believe things happen by accident, but we were at a regional tournament my sophomore year, and a coach from Texas Tech was sitting there, and he asked my dad, he's like, excuse me, sir, who is that? He's like, that's my daughter. And he's like, where has she been? And my dad's like, here. And he's like, why have we not heard about her? So you fly very low key under the radar. I didn't have huge experiences in high school. I scored over 4,000 points. The Lord blessed me to do a lot of things. But my recruiting experiences, the University of Texas was interested in me my freshman year, but I'm like, okay, didn't like that too much. But only 3 schools looked at me. It was a JUCO, Stephen F. Austin, and Texas Tech. I selected Texas Tech because it was close to home, but far enough away from home. And the support, people were excited to know that, oh, you're going to college. But for me, I didn't know what to expect. I did not know what it looked like. I didn't know what all that entailed. The reverse for me from Nafees is that I grew up in a predominantly white and Latin American culture where I was the only Black kid in my class from the time I entered kindergarten until the time I graduated. And as you were speaking, my issues began when I was actually in college, in high school, before my senior year ever began. When they found out that I was going to receive a full ride scholarship and the attention was there, that's when the psychological, emotional, and mental abuse began. People did not know the stresses that were there, where people were rejecting you, people that were your friends stopped supporting you. And then you get to college and you're like, okay, I'm here. I called my mom crying because I saw more Black people in class. I freaked out. I'm not saying I'm better than any Black person. It was just a culture shock to me. Um, as you become part of this world, our coach said it best. She said, you live in a glass house, which means you're pretty much expected to live a perfect life where you can never do any wrong. And you live under a constant spotlight where you're always under the microscope and under pressure because somewhere somebody's watching you. They will call. We don't, like y'all have social media and all of these things. They made phone calls directly to my head coach and would tell them, hey, we saw Micah, Melinda, Michelle out at Walmart at 3 o'clock in the morning. We were just going out to have a good time. What they don't prepare you for is the mental side of you pretty much signing away your life for the next 4 to 5 years, however long that competitive scholarship is in place. They pretty much own you. And that's not something that is taught. They tend to paint a picture that it's really glamorous, that everything's going to be okay. But what they don't tell you is, like Nafis said, the pressures that come with you expecting to perform at an exceedingly high level. My freshman year, I played with one of the best women basketball players ever. Her name was Cheryl Swoops. She went on to win we won a national championship my freshman year, just like he did. I came off of the bench my freshman year, straight off the bench, not ever knowing what it was like. Very humbling to know that. However, I learned a lot in sitting the bench. And to have the best player tell you, you better perform or else we're going to have a problem. No one prepares you for that. Like he said, they don't tell you that you're coming in with all these other awesome athletes that are able to hoop just as well as you're able to hoop. And the support is not there. We will call names. We were mentally abused, psychologically abused, and things that were said to where I was like, no. I'm not going to allow you to do this. You can keep my scholarship and I'll transfer out of this. After we won the national championship, we competed in the top 10 to 12. Well, within the top 10, the vast majority of my collegiate career that I was blessed to be there, we won 118 games and I think lost like 15 games in 4 years. So the pressure to perform at such a high level, and you see the disparities in how the male and female athletes are treated, where I had met a young man that couldn't even read. He said, I did not even take the test. I can't remember what it's called, the TOS test back in the day. He said, I didn't even take it. Someone else took it. So that told me right there that they really did not care about us as people, that we were there to perform, that we were there to pretty much just do what they wanted done, which is to generate revenue and income for their programs and for their school. However, they didn't really take care of you. You would walk behind a smile and people would never know that you go home and you cry. And I always call it a hollow spotlight because you see me in the spotlight, but the inside of me was so hollow, broken, and tormented from the abuse of the coaches, from jealous teammates, to you just wanting to go out here and have your out, which is something that we're all supposed to do, which was love balling. And it's like they were jealous. I'm like, why are we jealous when we're supposed to be teammates? And it's opposite because we didn't have that camaraderie in the locker room. The girls were very jealous and we were very divided. However, we learned to perform. And when we left the spotlight, we would disperse and not talk and couldn't stand each other. My experiences, we were not set up for success, especially people that look like Micah. We didn't get to go into the graduate programs. We were not set up for success. As you looked at our counterparts and saw how the road was paved before them and the opportunities were there, I began to sit and look back like, why aren't these same things afforded to us? Fast forward all these years later, as we come together, my former teammates and my former sisters that hooped together, we were like, did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? And da-da-da-da. But we saw that we were never cared for. Yes, we had a free education. Yes, we had the ability to travel and do great things. I don't take any of it for granted. However, I came home crying and I had the world laid before me just because I could put a ball through a hoop. Oh, they loved it. They loved it. They loved it. Oh, she can do this. She can do that. Pretty much any and everything that I wanted, I could get. However, I knew not to manipulate what was before me, because I didn't want anyone to own me. So I walked away. I was blessed to play overseas. I wasn't thinking about hooping anymore. I'm like, man, it was very heartbreaking to see. I can feel him on his story also. We're like, hey, man, y'all didn't do that. My own coach told me, she's like, I didn't vote for you. I voted for another individual that attended the University of Tennessee to be a first team Kodak All-American. And I'm like, why would you tell me this? It's like there was an intentional trying to tear you down mentally to where you could never excel to be the best that you could. But they painted a picture on the pretense that they really cared about you. And oftentimes they did not. I played in Jerusalem and I had a shoulder injury, and Nancy Lieberman Klein was my mentor. While I was in college, she was there for me, interviews, whatever the case may be, worked her camps. And I thought that when I was overseas and had an injury to my shoulder, I had 2 subluxation injuries, partial tears in my shoulder. She went back and told them, because I was blessed to be selected in the women's WNBA in the elite draft, the second round, where I didn't have to try out back in 1997. But when she went back and she told me that, told them what had happened, everything went south. And I caught a lot of flack from that. And I didn't understand that, coming from, okay, I can't call my coach. My parents didn't understand. No one had ever had those expectations to perform and be in the spotlight in the Coliseums and have people stalking you, sending you crazy mail, and they're just on you like white on rice. Like, man, I don't get you. That's why to this day, I don't like the spotlight. Y'all just let me fall back and let me give what I can and just keep it moving and call it a day, because I'm good. And going into the WNBA, and I was blessed to coach for 3 years, I would instill in my students, I said, what you see is not real. Behind the spotlight are a lot of broken individuals that can't express themselves. So I always try to instill in them. I said, hey, I met a coach. The media will twist it just like social media back in the day. They put out there a lie, but the coach pulled me into the office, gave me my first paycheck. And she's like, hey, I don't like you. Here's your first check, your last check. Have a good life. And cut me on the spot. Selected in the elite draft on the spot. And I was devastated from that point, fell into a state of depression. I gained weight. I went into emotional eating. I hated my body. I hated everybody. I didn't want to see anyone, but there was no one there to catch me. And that's why I'm a huge advocate today for the overall treatment of a student athlete, that you treat them like a human being first, knowing that they too have emotions and that they too have a lot of things that they deal with. But over the course of all of this, I've pretty much learned that, yes, it was a blessing, because I'm able to now encourage other students or kids, or just encourage someone along the way to give back what I taught in that experience. If they're aspiring to be a famous athlete, I said, what's your fallback? How are your grades looking? What's your education like? What is your plan B? Should you not be able to become a professional athlete because the percentages are so very low? And I don't agree with the pounding in the head that everybody can do this, because not everyone can. I need my babies and all babies out there to know that, hey, you can become other things that will require your mind to where your body's not beaten down to where you cannot use your body. The mental health side to this, Dr. Smith, I'm so glad you're doing this, because I was passionate about this when I was cut from the league back in 1997. I said, if I ever get a chance to tell it, I'm going to encourage kids to know that there are more options out here than you being able to be used up for your athletic ability, because the same ones that put you on that high pedestal are the same ones that'll cut you down at the knees, and you will be yesterday's news, actually today's old news, because that's how quickly things shift and change. So the mental health, man, keep going, because what you're doing, I do believe it's going to be so integral in what's to come in a lot of our student athletes and the babies that are coming up. So take care of all of them, keep pressing forward, and just know it all starts in the mind. And without that base and that help and that support, we don't know what to do when we're given that much notoriety, popularity, publicity. There's no one that teaches us that. So we have to cultivate the babies now and set their minds for, hey, just in case it doesn't work, what is your plan B? Now, achieve your dreams and reach beyond the sky, because the sky is higher beyond the sky, because the sky we see, but then when you see that, you limit yourself, and that is allowing them to control you with an athletic ability, but you use your intellect to do what needs to be accomplished before you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for saying that. Nafis, what do you think? I was about to say something, but I could tell you was
drop the mic. I don't got to say nothing else. She didn't laid it down. I ain't got to say nothing else. I enjoyed that. I ain't got to say nothing else. I appreciate that. That was like, and that's what I'm saying. That's locker room talk for you. Like, that's the real, like, when you want to take the mask off and you ask players really how they feel, they'll tell you. It might not be in the best tone, and it might be a lot of emotions, but that's a lot of people that feel like how we feel and going through that process. And the people that's around it, I really take offense of the business side of basketball. Yes. I'm kind of mentally burnt out of the business of basketball because it's more of the theatrics and it's not the purity of the game anymore. Right. And we're dealing with kids and they don't, like she said earlier, you might not make it, but what's the alternative and not plan B? Let's transition at the same time because your most leverage is why you playing. When you take that jersey off, you know, I can't even go back. I probably would never go back to my school unless my coach is there, to be honest. I probably won't go back. I don't have a relationship there. I'm trying to build it, but I don't have a strong foundation where I feel like that's where they embrace me to the point where I'm like, man, that's my alma mater. I'm going back, and I didn't get that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about, and I think you both can speak to this. What about, we're talking about the business, because the business now, as we evolve, it doesn't just start in college. Right, the business of sports, we can go now to AAU and like travel sports. Like, so what are we saying to those kids who are looking at the business side of it, tournaments every weekend, traveling all over, the kids that are good that can afford to travel, and to the parents who are fighting each other in the stands, or, you know, I mean, the coach is trying to cheat, you know, the kickbacks from getting the kids someplace, or what are we telling our young people now? Because now it is a business. It's not just playing in the rec league on Saturday mornings and getting to go home and enjoying it. So what are we speaking to our young people now who see that as the only route or the way to go?
You can go.
Either one. You can go.
I think we're showing them that we don't really value them and that they're just, I'll keep saying it, a cash cow. You are a slave. What can I get out of you? How can I exploit you and your talent to benefit me while I don't care about what happens to you? That's what I believe is happening. And it irks me because it also comes, what if there is a child that comes from a disenfranchised environment or a home setting that has the ability to perform, but they don't have the necessary resources to get the recognition? So to me, I think that just widens the gap and it causes that divide of, oh, you don't have, as opposed to the haves and the have-nots, that I can do this and you cannot. And so many babies are being left behind. And I believe that leaves them feeling like I'm nothing. And messes with their mental psyche, that what's the point in striving and doing this when I'm already being rejected? You know, they're telling me that just because my mom or dad doesn't make ABC, XYZ, I've had so many kids tell me, they were like, yo, Coach A, I'm burnt out. I'm so burnt out. My parents are just pushing me. My parents don't understand it. They're just driving me in the ground. They don't let me rest. They're not letting me sleep. They're not letting me think for myself. They're devaluing our children and their ability to think for themselves. Now, kids don't always know what they're doing, but for them to express themselves and the frustration that they feel, as opposed to seeing the dollar signs or them being the next, who's the guy, Stefan Martin or whatever it is. My kids say I say his name wrong. All these greats that they see. It's not the reality of it.
Yeah, for me, I play. I try to keep it 100 with all the parents, and I always say when you go, and to me, it's really not. It's not parents. It's the business of everything, because it's the machine. Because it's just like changing faces. It's agents. It's the NBA. It's the promotion and marketing and stuff like that. So if I got the number one kid from Florida and you got the number one kid from Texas, and we battling with each other, the marketing is going to be so big. And now you see certain people in the stands now, ding, 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 ding. The parents only saying, well, your son might be playing against the number one player. Well, they got an opportunity to make this money and stuff like that. So I really, really try to, have candid conversation like this and like on Zoom calls. And my girlfriend does a good job. She hosts like situations where some of the top kids and giving the business of sports and really telling them and breaking it down about what's really going on out there and what you should be looking for, like that checklist. If you have an agent and you're in the 8th grade, you shouldn't be talking about no agent because they're recruiting you now. They're recruiting you now to get you early to make sure you're going to sign with me. Don't take nothing that's illegal, because at the end of the day, when we talk about kids, it's always, and what I see, the black kids are taking the brute force of what's going on. And when you see that, and you see on ESPN headline, well, kid took benefits and now he's ineligible. Well, the kid that worked this hard, their family don't really have nothing, but now he's ineligible to showcase his talent, and then he don't get an opportunity to showcase that, and he doesn't get an opportunity to go to the NBA. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I think just educating early and really breaking it down, that what can you do besides basketball? What if AAU is done? What is the next step?
Yeah. That's a good statement. Like, what can you do? And that's looking at the all around person. And that goes back to what you were saying, Nafis, not failing the neighborhood. Like, this is just, what an example for young women, prophetess, when they see you make it, and I'm from here now, I know I can make it too. What an example for Nafis, when you made it, boom, now I can make it too. Or I hear you talking about it. Now I want to do it. But if this story right here never gets told, then do I still feel like I can do it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you both were sharing your stories, and it's interesting that this is not, from where you come from, Micah, where you said like a country town, or where you come from, Nafis, in West Philly. It's still looking at the all of the athlete is still the issue that we're talking about. But any part of success, the mental fortitude it took to get to where you both went is unbelievable. Right. And now we're looking at these athletes that make it. Again, we're going back to Naomi Osaka, like her pulling out the mental fortitude to even be in those situations. And a lot of that's the times we don't teach our young people just that. We teach the men, like you were saying, okay, Nafis, okay, we can have locker room talk, but don't let them see you weak. You know what I'm saying? Or prophet, it's okay, you can come over here and play, but I'm going to call you these names. But if you still want to keep playing, you better take this. Like nobody says we have to take this emotional abuse, but it comes with it. How do you build up a young person to be human, to be themselves, but there's a level of tough, a grit that you have to take to get to that level. Like, how do you balance that and still find yourself?
I think you put the pressure on when they recruit you and them coaches come in your house and say, well, we got this and that's to offer you. I think you put the pressure on. How can you help my kid develop as a person? That's like, if he get a major injury, does he have an opportunity to become a coach and guarantee that? A lot of times they always say, well, we can't guarantee this. That's lies. I don't believe that. I do not believe it. All them boosters coming to them games and donating their money, you got to find a way to do it.
Whew. My pastor, you live in Nafis, you in Philly, right?
Yeah, I'm in Philly.
Yeah, he's in West Philly, Pastor. I don't know why he mentioned Florida. That was interesting too. But he's in West Philly. He's gonna eat a cheesesteak for all of us tonight, just off the string. Just off the string. I'm sorry about that, Nafis. I just wanted to put her.
I just said put the pressure on and really like treat these people like human, but put the pressure on these schools, because it's a lot of money being generated as soon as you sign that dotted line from these players, and they can guarantee a lot of stuff. They might not say it in the public, but it's a lot of guarantees that's going on that people don't see. And if you pull back the layers of some of this stuff that go down and how kids get to these certain schools, it won't be so far fetched after all.
Okay. Prophecy, anything?
No, he's absolutely right. And I'm just glad that the leveraging has been changed more so to where the parents are being educated for them to advocate now for their children. This is what you're offering my child, but should this happen, ABC, how are you still going to take care of my baby? I was fortunate that after I got cut from the WNBA, my coach was like, yeah, you can finish up your 5th year of your scholarship. Because I said, Moms, I promise you I'm going to get my degree. If I don't do anything else, I promise you I'm going to get my degree from college. Just to make sure everything's out there and don't leave anything on the table. Explore all options.
Yeah. So what I hear you both saying, you can ask for stuff when they come to your house and they start recruiting you, or they're saying, we want you to come play here. Tell them what you want. If it's the 4-year scholarship, if it's the 5-year, if it's, whatever, make sure my kid goes to class, all that stuff. You have a right to also, it's not like what they can offer you, sign it out of line, but there's some negotiating going on too. If you really want me to come play.
And the thing is, I don't know what the rules are at the NCAA, and being a graduate assistant at the University of Missouri for the last 2 years, they need to really recruit the neighborhood and put the resource in. So now if you want the next kid, you're gonna get them because you put the money into the neighborhood. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know why they don't do that and put like a gym or put resources in the neighborhood. So now you did your job. Now the pressure is not on the player no more. It's like, okay, my school is donating their time, they donate their resources, and now you can get the next LeBron James, you can get the next Steph Curry. And now it's like, I just feel like it's a better way to do it. And I think they put kids in a box where they try to put the pressure on them to make grown people decisions, and they're not ready.
Mm-hmm. So what do we say to the athletes, whatever level, but specifically college, right, who's dealing with depression and anxiety? Maybe they don't have a coach that. Shout out to Nancy. I didn't know you Nancy Lieberman was your mentor too. That's awesome. I think Prophetess Mike have been holding back on everybody about who she know, what she could do. So she ain't been saying none of that. But Nancy Lieberman was your mentor. That's a completely different story. But what do we say to these? And Casey is the number one, is the Sheryl Swoopes fan club. I think she leads it in Texas. She didn't tell us that either. So she's a big Sheryl Swoopes fan. We're finding out now. But what is something like, okay, say a person doesn't have a mentor, doesn't have a coach that can lead them to get counseling services. What are we doing? Maybe they have performance anxiety, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they have social anxiety, which is a part of anxiety, but dealing with depression. Like I said, like when you go to college and everybody's a star, when you don't start, that's devastating. When you're used to starting for 4 years in high school, and then now I'm telling my own story. Can you hear my story in this, everybody? When you get to, I may start crying. Then when you get to college and you don't start, nobody tells you how to handle that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody tells you how to study, but then make sure you take this trip with the team and you're going to be spending the night and you got to come back and take this test. You know what I mean? So nobody tells you how isolated it's going to be in the wintertime where nobody's on campus but just you guys, and you tired of seeing these same people over and over again. Right? Exactly. Yeah, in the snow, and like 3 feet of snow in the mountains, and you've seen the same people. You got to walk to the gym in the snow. So what do you tell somebody who doesn't have a coach, who you don't know who to talk to? How do you find help?
Get out of there as soon as possible.
I agree.
Get out of there. Because it doesn't benefit. It doesn't benefit you for staying in an environment if they don't have the resources, because you're not there just for basketball. I always tell them, you're there to get an education and not no 3.5 GPA to say, well, I got 3.5, like I said earlier. Can you retain the information? Can they guarantee you, pair you up with an internship with one of these boosters that's funding the program? And can my kid get a job after he's done playing basketball? If they don't have the resources to support you mentally, it's not going to work. Get out of there. Put your name in the transfer portal as soon as possible. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Prophecy, you have anything?
No, I agree. Because if you don't care about me as a person, you don't deserve for my talent to play there. When I say my talent, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you don't deserve the gifts that I've been gifted with from the good Lord. That's just me. So you don't deserve that. You can't guarantee me this. No. Because what they don't understand, like he's saying, there is so much money tied up in this that oftentimes if you don't know how to leverage that information and to leverage that to your benefit, people will just settle for the full ride scholarship and think that's it. They will just settle for it, not knowing. So yeah, get out as soon as you can. You don't have to subject yourself to any type of abuse. That's just me.
Yeah, that's good. Nafis, my pastor says you got books in you.
Oh man,
so you need to start writing something.
Yeah, and my journals is turning into books, so that's what I'm using them for.
Amen. See,
that's what's up.
See, sliding their pockets with blocks with. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. The idea that just looking at the young Black people as the business and not the total person.
Right.
Yeah, and getting to college and having to earn your spot, as opposed to just thinking that you're going to be the person. There you go. You need to be a recruiter, or I missed it. Nafis, are you a recruiter?
No, I don't do that. I recruit. No, I just give information. I'm not into that. I don't treat these kids like they property. We recruiting the schools. Like, what can you offer the kid as far as education and the opportunities? But me as recruiting the kid, nah. Yeah. I would have stayed in it if I was doing that.
Yeah. I think that's what she means. Like, what are you helping the young person, the student now get to the school? And are you at the table too when they come to the
Oh,
house?
if they ask,
And
yeah,
yeah,
if they
yeah.
ask, I mean, I really just have a checklist of questions because sometimes I don't want to be a part of that just because I just rather hear the conversation from a third party because if I'm there, sometimes it might be intimidating for coaches because I know the language. So I'll let them come back and bring the information. And then if they want me to be there, I'll be there. But I kind of just, like I said, I just want the best for the kid and the family. That's what I care about the most important. I don't care about all that other stuff.
Absolutely.
These coaches get paid money. Like, don't 3.4.5 million dollars. The assistant's getting 400,000 or 500,000. Come on, you gotta look out for these kids.
Right.
Amen. And Prophetess, your mom's saying there's more accomplishments you're not telling. You holding back on this.
Oh, she
I'm
high.
trying to, yeah. If you know Nancy Lieberman, you know more people. So she holding back on this. She got more stuff. She got stuff she can be sharing with us. But I got a couple more questions. If you guys got questions, add it as well in the comments. And hopefully I won't lose my comment. What are your plans now? Like, is it more that what I hear you guys saying, this is more than just doing a basketball tournament in the summer, right? Or better yet, why are we not doing the basketball tournaments in the summer? That's really for you, Prophetess. But not Feast right there in Philly doing the tournaments, or what are you doing for the kids, especially now because the murder in Philly didn't stop. They still, unfortunately, kids are still out here getting murdered. And you can speak to those young boys who have to go through that. But so what does it look like in the in-between time to help these kids get off the street, but we can paint, all that stuff. So what does that look like? That's one question. And then my final question, I don't care how you guys answer them, is how do we feel about the star athletes now intentionally going to HBCUs instead of the other schools? And if that would help the mental health more, or does it even matter?
Whew. You can go first.
Go ahead, no, no, sir.
All right. So the first question, what am I doing right now? So what I do is I normally have like Zoom conversations where I partner up with my friends as therapists or psychologists and host like Zoom calls like this and talk about what's going on in the neighborhood and what ways that we could put resources in the neighborhood. And like I said, I'm all about putting the pressure on these companies. Like, we always look for the star athlete to do and speak out. Sometimes these athletes are not built to speak out. They are good at what they do on the floor. So I'm not putting the pressure. They didn't ask to be here. They were planted here. God planted them here and gave them this special ability. But these companies that's investing and putting these businesses around them and making sure the money is flowing, what can you do? What can y'all do to help us out as far as putting the resources in the neighborhood? And the last question is, should star athletes go to HBCU? So for me, that was one of my biggest regrets because I looked down on HBCUs because I thought, I'm going to the NBA, I need the exposure. But the one thing I learned about going to a predominantly white institution, I was suffering in silence because, like I said, I was the only black kid in a class. And I know at HBCUs, I got friends who played at HBCUs and they go back every year, and it's a community. And I felt like I owe that to myself to go back as a graduate student or something, or teach or something, because the feeling that I get, I'd be like, yo, I don't know what that's like, but
that's a different feeling. Yeah. It's a sense of pride. Yeah.
Oh, so I felt like star athletes not only just go because you want to go because of your talent, but go because of the culture. You're not trying to fit in. You already know the language. You already know professors care because I don't have as many resources at the big time schools, supposedly, but you got the people care for you. And I think that, and culturally, you need to understand who you are as a person and how we got there. So I think it goes beyond that for me. And like I said, I try to do my best on what I can and just be an advocate, mental health advocate, and inspiring psychologist to give whatever I can give. And, if it's fly on the wall, then so be it. Whoever can soup it up, I'm here for it.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Pastor's saying you need to be a consultant, which is also, I think you going as far as linking with the kids or whatever program you have for college area. And I think she said, helping those behind you. So you don't know, Pastor, we don't know what Nafis is about to do for all the local colleges in the area in Philly, how he's going to connect with all the coaches. Maybe you're putting on, what's that thing called? Not necessarily a pro day, because that's for the college kid. Maybe it is a pro day, and you do it there, you get a gym. Like, what if you went down to, the Leocore Center, and you got a little pro day going, and you had all the local high school kids and all the local colleges, and you did your own little tournament. I think Nafis may be doing that. Yeah, You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Go ahead, Prophetess. I just gave you an idea in that piece.
That's dope. I like that.
Go ahead, Prophetess.
And when it happens, please tell us how you do this.
Yeah.
I haven't.
You can do it too. You can do it right here. You can get one of these gyms to do a little day for the women athletes.
Okay.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Right now, I have just come off watching my child graduate, and I haven't really been advocating for the kids with the COVID and the distance that's been between us. But if an opportunity ever presented itself to where I could get my foot in the door and help a child and to just give back and share what I know, I'd be more than happy to do it, because I don't believe that what I've now along the way, I've been very blessed to have learned a lot about the sport. And I was sitting, it's funny because I was watching the footwork of a WNBA player. I said, this is the exact same footwork that we learned in college. So with that that knowledge that I have, I don't mind giving it to someone else. I don't mind giving it to a kid. I don't believe that it has to be in a setting where it's breaking the bank, because what I have, it should be given freely, because freely it was given unto me. Now, granted, we did the scholarship stuff and had to work hard for that. However, what I have, I want to give back. I just don't, I've never really explored how to give back because I am passionate about the kids. Yes, HBCUs, I didn't know what that was, to be honest with you. However, as I've grown older, I'm like, absolutely do it. Go for it. Because we were taught that no, like he said, don't go there, don't do that. You're not going to get the same attention. These are just stories I've heard. And I'm like him.
Yeah.
I don't go back to my alma mater. I don't feel like I fit in. You can walk in the Coliseum and you'll see a picture of Micah up, and Micah did this. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. And they've built a new center where Micah's on the wall. And I'm like, I don't care, because you did not care about me when I was there as a person. So to me, that's just nonsense. How are we going to give back? How are we going to contribute? How are we going to break down the divide? And are you willing to come to the table and really sit down and have the hard conversations, those real genuine heart-to-heart talks? Are y'all willing to do that as coaches and see where we're coming from as parents and former athletes to make it a better overall experience for those that are now coming behind me to help them going forward?
Yeah, that's good. Can't wait for your pro day. What's it, the pro am? Is it, what's it called? The pro am pro day, when you get the gym and you do it for all the college women basketball players or the high school players, and they get recruits come out in the schools. It's gonna be dope. It's gonna be right here in Fort Worth.
It's gonna be dope.
Nafis. And I'm gonna go to the one in Philly. Nafis gonna do. Casey has a question. Co-worker's daughter got drafted. So what's the question? Can parents do to support their child in the spotlight? Like, what did your parents do, not do? How can you support your child when they're in that spotlight, to not let it go to their head, or to not, if the anxiety gets too much, the pressure to perform gets too much? What can you do? What can parents do to support their child?
I think if this is the question that you're asking, if they're asking now, I think what's all the questions that you're asking, you should have preventative measures. So if you feel like, I've seen from patterns that, people suffer from anxiety, depression, get a therapist right away. Don't wait till they get there. Get a therapist right now. And as far as be supportive and not trying to tell a player what to do, because at that age, when you're in that professional, they want to figure it out. It's a partnership at that point. It's no longer you telling them what to do. Like, they have a job to perform at a high level, but what, like, are you asking for tickets to 10 minutes before the game? Like, things like that. That's just too overwhelming. Like, do you want to be strictly in the business of your son or daughter? So I think you got to establish the boundaries and let your son or daughter know, like, I'm here to support you, but whatever role that you need me to play, and still be a parent at the same time, but not overbearing. Because I think a lot of people, just because I'm the parent, I mean, I'm the business manager, I'm the agent. No. You might not be qualified to do those jobs, and that's okay. As long as you're the parent first, all the other stuff can come in. They can hire it for that or whatever. So, that's what I would say. Put the preventative things in support first.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Prophets, you got anything?
I'm just agreeing with what he said. And remember that that's still your baby. and still remember the heart of that child and the overall well-being. And I would bid parents or caregivers or guardians to not get caught up in the spotlight themselves of all the notoriety, the publicity, and the things of that nature that the child may be in a position to experience. Just really, really listen to them and have open lines of communication where it's genuine, to where you're not judging and telling them, well, you better do this and you should do this. Just hear what the child is actually, your now young adult is actually saying to you, and just be there to support them in whatever role you can. And don't wear the hats that are not assigned to you. Just stay in your lane.
That's awesome. That's good. Get out the way, parents, is what she said. But that's good. I like that. Pro-Am Day, that's what it is. We're professional. Y'all thought I was going to drop it. Where the amateur and the professional athletes come together, can play in the gym, and then the scouts are there, the recruits are there. You know what I mean? Or a little AAU tournament of some sorts, or, you know, a little girls basketball, young women's basketball camp. You know what I mean? Like, all this stuff is dope. Everything that excited you in the summertime, and getting back to the skills and the basics. But any lasting words you all have for any athlete, or an athlete taking care of their mental health, or an athlete hearing about, I don't know, Kyrie Irving talking about he can't play right now because of his mental health, or last year in the bubble with the playoff P, who wasn't necessarily playoff P for the Clippers, but he said this bubble I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling anxious. I can't do this, right? Paul Pierce wasn't Paul Pierce. What's his name? Paul Pierce. Okay. Was it Paul Pierce for the Clippers? Okay. All right. So, in saying, like, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling down in this bubble, but any lasting words as far as dealing with mental health, talking about it, the trauma of the neighborhood, because like what Nafees has taught us tonight, he's shown us, especially, just because you move, you don't leave behind all of who you are in the neighborhood or what you saw. You just carry that and carry that pain on. But anything for an athlete with mental health before we close out?
What I would leave with, I live by a Frederick Douglass quote that I love, that I picked up over the years, and what I always say is, it says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, and I think that's paramount, and everything encompasses with this quote, because I feel like if you don't catch them early, then you got a lot of broken men walking around here trying to figure it out before it's too late. So if any athletes or family members, get it early, like, don't be afraid and don't force it. And it doesn't have to be, you got to go to therapy. You got to treat therapy, or treat finding a therapist or a psychologist or a counselor like speed dating. You got to find which one that works for you, that's relatable, and really understand this is for you. When you break your leg, or you go to the doctor, the same thing. If you need some mental help, stability, and you need to bounce some ideas off, be open to it, but make sure you do it on your time, and, you know, do it when you're ready. And like I said, let's have some preventative things in place. And we know these kids are in high stress levels, as well as parents, because they're anxious as well. So let's make sure we take care of families first.
That's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
I would just say, don't be afraid to be you and to speak up if you need help. Do not allow the stigma associated with our culture to get in the way of you speaking about how you feel. Don't worry about being ostracized, because if your mental health is not right and your emotional health is not stable, to me, nothing that you set out to accomplish is going to be successful, because eventually you're going to fizzle out and burn, and you're going to have to circle back and come to that thing. So I would just say, get the help that you need. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you don't get it, go to your high school counselor. There is somebody that you can reach out to, and to let them know that, hey, you need help, whether it's a trusted teacher, a coach. Just speak up, and don't be afraid. Do not be afraid, and be the best you can be as a whole person, not just as an athlete.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this was good. This was like, I knew it was going to be amazing. It's like amazing times 10. Would have you athletes on here. I appreciate it, because I know that whoever's listening, even when it's shared, that you guys are helping some athletes. Not only you're helping those who used to be athletes, right? Because you're saying things that they didn't know how to speak. Like, Micah, what you were saying, when we all got together, we realized we all was hurting some type of way. And then you're also helping the young people, right, in those neighborhoods. Nafis, my pastor, has a. Do you have a Bible? No, she's being serious. She's not joking. Like,
no, I was. No, I'm sorry about that. No, but I wasn't raising it.
Yeah, he wasn't. Pastor, did you hear Nafis's story when he first came on? I don't know if she was on here then to hear your story.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if she's. I thought she was gonna respond real quick, but yeah. So you guys are helping people. That's what I was saying, like young people, old people, like older retired athletes, and you're helping young people as well. Nafis, do you want to do a quick recap of your younger and the trauma, or you want me to do it real quick? She's saying she didn't hear the story.
Oh, you can do it.
Okay, so this is a quick recap, Pastor. Nafis is from Philly, and he went to move to North Carolina around the age of 14. Look at this off the top of my head, Nafis. Around the age of 14, and then his brother was murdered at the age of 19, but Nafis was 14, so he came back to Philly. He was, not to be confused with the #1 player in the state of Pennsylvania, but he was the top scorer in the city of Philadelphia. But he didn't get recruited, which we still think is a conspiracy. Me and Prophetess believe it's conspiracy because some letters came to the high school. I still believe somebody got a stack of letters for you. But then as he was growing up in Philly, his friends were being murdered in the neighborhood as well. And so he was just talking about working his way from the junior college to college. And also like even at the height of his success in college, his cousin was also murdered. So he's seen a lot of trauma, and that's what we talked about a lot in his story. And Nafis made a great point, Pastor, for everybody listening, is a lot of times when coaches don't treat the young people right, you're not only failing that player or that individual person, but you're failing the neighborhood. And I think that's like I love that line that you gave. And so it's about pulling, when you pull one person out, that's exactly what he's doing now. He's reaching back to get other young people. So I think Nafis has a dope story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo, that was a quick read. Look at that off the top. Look, I listened to every look. I listened. I got it. Boom. Yeah, that's why he said PTSD. Yep. For the trauma that he dealt with. All right. Anybody else have any questions for him? This is the space. We didn't ask in detail about shout out to Corinne Williams. She's on here. Corinne is remember Corinne was on a while ago. She told us about the theater. And I don't know why I'm holding my shirt up. I have a shirt coming today, and it's with men. It's like social justice and mental health. So Nafis, you need to get with Corinne too about the social justice part of it, because that'd be something dope to do if you both could link up. Speaking about trauma and working with these young kids, because MEND also helps to train therapists in dealing with trauma in different areas, like the EMDR and the ACT training. So that'd be really dope. Connect.
I need it. Whatever you got.
Yeah. Do you have a Bible though, Nafis? That's the question. We're coming full circle again. You didn't answer.
I don't have a Bible.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a Bible.
All right.
Is that okay? All right. And Corinne, I'll get you connected with Nafis as well. And my pastor's gonna mail you something. You guys, you know what you didn't talk about? I know you guys are like, you said that would be it. I have one more question. You guys didn't talk about overseas and specifically how that was. If it was a different language.
Part 2.
Okay, that's part 2. Okay, that's a part 2. All right, we can do it. But pastor's gonna mail you something, and we'll make sure you get a Bible. Okay. And I'm gonna connect you in Messenger. I'm gonna connect you with Corinne, even from even dealing with the young kids in the neighborhood and that level of trauma. Corinne, I don't know if you missed the story too about the murders that he's seen, and even going on now in West Philly in general. But I think that'll be an awesome connection as far as trauma. Prophetess, thanks for sharing your story. Shout out to Prophetess Summer Camp, Prophetess Micah Atkins Summer Camp, Summer 2021. I'm sure True Praise will back you. It's gonna be awesome, everybody. Casey will be there.
She dropped the mic.
Yeah, Casey gonna be at the camp. Pastor gonna be at the camp. And Pastor's gonna send you some stuff.
Awesome stuff.
All right, you Pope. Thank you so much. We'll have to do a recap. We'll have to do a part 2, athletes and stuff. But Nafis, make sure you share with your people in your circle and next time we'll get more athletes on here.
Okay,
you know
cool.
What I mean?
Definitely.
All right. Prophetess, thank you so much for jumping on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
What do you say?
Amazing story.
She
thank you,
does.
sir.
You both have them. Yeah, you both do.
You
Awesome.
do too.
And Nafis, I'm gonna get your address so Pastor can send you something. Okay, I'm gonna message you.
Okay.
Prophetess, this was a slam dunk. It was a slam dunk, Prophetess. Awesome. All right, you both. Well, I'm gonna see you and
All
I'll
right.
check you out. All right, be blessed.
Y'all.
Bye bye.
Y'all too. Bye bye.